What if I told you, dear friend, that your garden could bloom into something extraordinary without expensive gadgets or trips to fancy stores? Imagine a quiet morning on your porch, the air still cool, a cup of tea warming your hands as the first rays of sunlight stretch across your yard. The birds are already busy with their songs, and you look at your plants with the same affection one gives to family. Gardening, after all, isn't about how much money you spend. It's about patience, care, and the joy of watching life unfold from something small. When I think back to the early days of my gardening, I didn't have much. My tools were mismatched, my pots borrowed from the kitchen, and my seeds came from neighbors who tucked a packet into my palm with a smile. Yet those little beginnings gave me the same harvest of joy as any well-stocked greenhouse. That's why today, I want to show you how even the most ordinary items, things you might find for a single dollar, can open the door to gardening magic. You see, what matters most isn't age, strength, or wealth. It's imagination. A silicone mat, a shaker, a simple tray, all can become your allies in the soil. This is more than thrift. It's creativity, it's resourcefulness. It's proof that we, like our gardens, can keep growing in new ways. So settle in, breathe deeply, and let's explore together how a handful of humble finds can transform your garden into a place of wonder. Think about the first time you planted a tomato seed, tiny as a freckle, and waited with such hope for it to break the soil. Seeds need warmth to stir awake. Yet many of us hesitate to invest in pricey seedling heat mats that can cost $30 or more. Here's where a little imagination and a Dollar Tree silicone baking mat can quietly change the story. Instead of resting under cookies, it can rest beneath your seedlings. Place the mat on a sunny windowsill, then set your seed tray right on top. The silicone soaks up the day's warmth and releases it back gently at night, like a soft quilt tucking your seeds in. A neighbor of mine, Ellen, tried this with her peppers last spring. She told me how surprised she was that every seed sprouted so evenly, no weaklings, no stragglers. Ellen is on a fixed income and said she'd nearly given up on starting her own plants because the equipment seemed out of reach. That $1 mat restored her confidence and filled her porch with strong young seedlings ready for the season. What I love about this trick is how forgiving it is. No wires, no complicated instructions, no heavy lifting. Just a simple mat, easy to move and easy to clean. For older hands or anyone wanting to keep gardening light and manageable, it offers independence and joy. It proves that gardening doesn't have to drain your wallet or your energy. The lesson here, my friend, is clear. Sometimes the simplest tools carry the deepest magic. Seeds like us thrive when the conditions are kind and steady. With a touch of warmth, patience, and a little creativity, life awakens stronger than before. Have you ever tried sowing carrot seeds and felt them slip straight through your fingers, landing in clumps where you least wanted them? Tiny seeds have a way of humbling even the most seasoned gardener. That's why I smile whenever I see the salt and pepper shakers at Dollar Tree, because with a little creativity, they become the gentlest seed sowers you'll ever use. Simply pour your seeds into a clean shaker, cover a few holes with tape if you want to slow the flow, and lightly tap them across your soil. Suddenly, instead of frustration, you have even rows of seedlings waiting to rise. My friend George, who battles arthritis in his hands, once confessed that scattering seeds had become almost impossible. He'd drop half a packet in one spot and have nothing left for the rest of the row. When he tried the shaker trick, he said it felt like gardening had been given back to him. The seeds fell where he wanted, his rows were neat, and the joy returned to his afternoons in the garden. He even began mixing his seeds with clean sand before filling the shaker, a small adjustment that made them flow more smoothly while stretching each packet farther. For those of us gardening on a budget, this matters. Why waste half a packet thinning seedlings when every dollar counts? With this method, nothing is lost and the reward is greater. It's an old truth wrapped in a new idea. Order brings peace. A single shaker can turn a chore into a simple, satisfying moment of control and care. The deeper lesson: just like life, gardening rewards those who find new ways to handle delicate things. A seed like a hope needs gentle placement. With a steady hand and a clever tool, even the smallest beginnings can spread evenly and beautifully across the soil of our lives. Do you remember spring days when the wind caught your seed packets and scattered them across the yard? I once lost half my lettuce and marigold seeds that way, one careless gust. And suddenly, my careful plans were gone. That's why I find so much comfort in a simple Dollar Tree plastic deviled egg tray. Instead of balancing open packets or mixing varieties by mistake, you can pour a small portion of each seed type into the little cups. Label them with tape or sticky notes, and suddenly your seed station feels calm and organized. My cousin Lydia swears by this hack. She likes to plant 3 or 4 different crops in one morning, but she doesn't move as quickly as she used to. The tray gives her time. No rushing, no fumbling with paper packets that tear too easily. Each seed variety waits safely in its own compartment until she's ready to use it. And when the day is done, she simply pours the extras back into their packets. No waste, no mess, no disappointment. What makes this trick even sweeter is how it doubles in purpose. Those same little cups serve as perfect drying stations when you save seeds at the end of the season. Spread them out in their own spaces, let the air do its quiet work, and soon you'll have seed to carry into another year. All for a single $1. There's a quiet wisdom here. Order reduces worry. Just as we sort our recipes, photographs, or even memories into neat places, so too can we give our seeds a home. When we take time to prepare and protect, the results are smoother, calmer, and more joyful. In gardening, as in life, organization is not about control. It's about peace. If you've ever opened a drawer and found stray seed packets spilling everywhere, you know the frustration of clutter. Seeds are precious, yet without care they get lost, damp, or forgotten. That's where Dollar Tree's magnetic spice tins come in, transforming chaos into calm. Fill each tin with seeds, label the lid, and place them on a magnetic surface, a cookie sheet hung on the wall, the side of a garage fridge, or even a simple magnetic board in your potting shed. Suddenly your seeds are visible, tidy, and waiting for you like little jewels in their cases. I remember visiting a friend named Margaret, who had one of the neatest seed stations I've ever seen. Her tins were color-coded green lids for spring crops, yellow for summer, and orange for fall. She told me how much joy it gave her to simply glance at her wall and know exactly what was ready for the season. No digging, no damp packets to mourn, no time wasted searching. Just calm order. For older gardeners, this system is a blessing. No bending into cluttered boxes or rifling through stacks. Every seed is in plain sight, easy to reach and easy to return. And because the tins are airtight, the seeds stay safe until their time comes. But beyond the practicality, there's a quiet reflection here. Life teaches us as we age the value of simplifying. We no longer need more things, we need fewer things arranged with care. These little tins remind us that order is not about being strict, but about creating space for peace. A garden like a life thrives best when we clear away the clutter and make room for growth. Think back to when you first tried to water tiny seedlings. Maybe you poured a little too much and the soil turned into mud. Or maybe the water splashed onto delicate leaves, leaving spots of burn under the sun. It's a common mistake, but one that can be solved with something as ordinary as a Dollar Tree condiment squeeze bottle. The same bottle that holds mustard at a picnic can become your gentlest watering tool. Fill it with plain water, diluted fertilizer, or compost tea, and you'll be able to deliver just enough moisture right at the base of your plants. My neighbor Ruth, who tends a patio garden filled with herbs, showed me how she labeled 3 bottles, one for water, one for bloom feed, and one for compost tea. She said it felt like having a personal medicine cabinet for her plants. The squeeze tip allowed her to water tiny basil seedlings without flooding them, and when she transplanted her flowers, she poked a tiny hole in one cap to create a slow drip right into the roots. For someone with limited mobility, it meant she could care for her garden without bending or worrying about overdoing it. This hack carries a beautiful lesson. Care is not about abundance, but precision. Just as we speak carefully to a child, or choose our words gently with loved ones, so too does the right measure of water or nutrients make all the difference for our plants. It's not the grand gestures, but the small, thoughtful touches that keep life thriving. A $1 bottle used with intention becomes a tool of both nurture and wisdom. How many times have you been in the middle of pruning only to feel your clippers go loose in your hand? Or maybe your garden shears suddenly wobble, making the job harder than it needs to be. Usually that means setting everything down, trudging back to the garage and hoping you have the right screwdriver. But a simple eyeglass repair kit from Dollar Tree can save the day. Those tiny screwdrivers and extra screws meant for spectacles are perfectly sized for quick garden tool fixes. Slip the kit into your apron pocket or garden caddy and suddenly you're prepared for the unexpected. I'll never forget one summer afternoon when my brother stopped by to help me stake tomatoes. Halfway through, the hinge on my pruners gave out. Instead of calling it quits, I pulled out my little glasses, Kit tightened the screw, and we were back to work within minutes. He laughed and said, "You're more prepared than the hardware store." And truth be told, it felt good to keep the rhythm of the day without interruption. For older gardeners especially, this hack saves both energy and frustration. No heavy toolbox to haul around, no bending over a cluttered workbench. Just a tiny tool in your pocket, ready when you need it. And if you add a small packet of machine oil to the kit, you've created a maintenance set that not only fixes, but also keeps blades sharp and smooth. The deeper lesson here is simple but powerful. Small tools, like small acts of kindness, hold enormous strength. Life doesn't always call for grand repairs. It often just asks us to tighten a screw, adjust a hinge, and carry on. With foresight and a touch of resourcefulness, even the smallest kit can keep our work and our lives moving smoothly. There's something tender about protecting seedlings, their stems, so fragile their leaves no bigger than a fingernail. We know they won't survive on their own against wind bugs or sudden cold snaps. That's why I love the simple charm of Dollar Tree's clear ornament balls, the kind meant for holiday crafts. Split them in half and you suddenly have a dome to place over your seedlings, turning each one into its own tiny greenhouse. The clear shell traps warmth and moisture while still letting the light in. I recall visiting my friend Alice one chilly spring morning. She'd covered her tomato seedlings with these ornament halves, and the sight was magical, like little crystal bubbles scattered across the soil. The warmth they provided kept her plants alive during an unexpected frost, and by summer her tomatoes were the pride of the neighborhood. She told me she drilled a couple of tiny holes in each dome for air circulation, a clever tweak that kept the seedlings from overheating. This hack is more than just practical. It carries a gentle reminder. Just as we shelter seedlings, so too do we shelter the tender moments of life, a memory tucked into a photo album, a story told to a grandchild, or a plant nurtured from seed. We protect these fragile beginnings until they grow strong enough to stand on their own. And the best part, these ornament domes are reusable season after season. Wash them out, pack them away, and bring them back when the next spring calls. It's proof that even holiday trinkets can hold a second life in the garden, offering both protection and poetry in one clear sphere. Every gardener knows that certain plants simply grow better together. Basil sweetens the flavor of tomatoes, marigolds guard peppers, and dill attracts the pollinators cucumbers need. But remembering which seeds to pair and keeping them handy at planting time can feel overwhelming, especially when you're juggling a handful of packets. That's why a simple Dollar Tree pill organizer, the kind with little compartments labeled for each day of the week, makes such a clever companion planting kit. My friend Howard, who manages a raised bed garden despite his limited mobility, swears by this trick. He fills each section of the organizer with ready-made companions, tomato seeds, with basil cucumbers, with dill peppers, with marigolds. On planting day, all he has to do is open one little lid and sprinkle. No searching, no second-guessing, no wasting energy shuffling through boxes. For him, gardening has become less about strain and more about joy. Another hidden advantage is how airtight these organizers are when snapped shut. Seeds stay dry, protected, and safe until you're ready to use them. And for gardeners with small patios or balconies, the compact case means you only carry what you need outside, leaving the clutter indoors. It's organization, portability, and protection, all for a single $1. There's also something symbolic here. Just as these compartments keep seeds paired in harmony, so too do our daily rituals. Our meals, medicines, or quiet routines bring balance to our lives. We don't need grand gestures to thrive. We just need small, thoughtful pairings that help everything work together. A pill organizer meant to nurture health ends up nurturing the garden as well. And in both cases, it reminds us that a steady hand and simple tools are often enough to keep life flourishing. At first glance, a mop bucket doesn't seem like it belongs in a garden. Yet, with a little imagination, it can open the door to one of the most exciting methods of growing hydroponics. Instead of soil, plants stretch their roots into water, enriched with nutrients, drinking deeply and growing quickly. Normally, starting a hydroponic system costs a small fortune, but with a simple Dollar Tree mop bucket and lid, you can try it for just a few dollars. Cut holes into the lid, nestle in small cups with seedlings, and let the roots dangle into the nutrient water below. The plants feed themselves steadily, no soil to dry out, no constant watering schedule. My neighbor Clara, who lives in an apartment with no yard, gave this a try last year. She placed her mop bucket system by a sunny window and grew enough lettuce to make fresh salads for weeks. She told me how empowering it felt to harvest her own greens in a small space without worrying about pests or messy soil. For her, it wasn't just about food, it was about possibility. For older gardeners, this hack also offers a gentle entry into new ways of growing. The setup is light, low maintenance, and surprisingly forgiving. And if you've ever wanted to try hydroponics but thought it too complicated, this is your invitation to experiment without fear. The deeper lesson is this: growth doesn't stop at a certain age or stage of life. Just as plants can flourish in new environments, we too can adapt and thrive in ways we never imagined. A mop bucket once meant for chores can hold a garden. And perhaps that's the real beauty of gardening. It teaches us that even ordinary things, when repurposed with care, can sustain life in extraordinary ways. Few things sting more than watching a perfect cluster of grapes or tomatoes ripen beautifully only for birds, squirrels, or insects to claim them before you do. I remember one summer when the robins discovered my grapevine. Within days, every ripe bunch was pecked and ruined. I felt defeated, as though the harvest wasn't mine anymore. Then I learned about a simple Dollar Tree fix mesh laundry bags. Normally used to protect delicate clothes in the wash, these lightweight bags slip easily over ripening fruit. With a drawstring or twist tie, they cinch gently around the stem, forming a breathable shield. My friend Doris used them on her peach tree last season. She laughed as she showed me her backyard peaches blushing behind their mesh veils, untouched by birds. She said it gave her peace of mind, knowing her fruit could finish ripening safely in the sun. The mesh allowed light and air to flow, but pests were kept out. And because the fabric was soft, it never bruised the fruit or weighed down the branches. The beauty of this hack is not only its simplicity, but its reusability. At season's end, you just rinse the bags, fold them flat, and tuck them away for next year. No sprays, no chemicals, no complicated traps, just a quiet barrier between your harvest and hungry visitors. There's a metaphor here too. Just as we protect our fruit with care, so we also safeguard the things we cherish most: our families, our memories, our health. We don't need harsh measures, only thoughtful boundaries that keep what matters safe, while still allowing light and air to pass through. $1 spent on laundry bags can save a season's worth of effort and teach us the quiet power of gentle protection. When harvest time comes, the joy of gathering herbs or flower petals is quickly followed by a question: how do we dry them properly? Laying them flat on paper towels often leads to uneven drying, mold, or damp spots. But a simple cooling rack from Dollar Tree, usually meant for cookies, can transform this process. By resting the rack over a shallow bin, a pair of bricks, or even just across a counter, you create a raised drying shelf. Air flows above and below, keeping your harvest crisp, fragrant, and evenly preserved. I once visited my neighbor Ruth on a late summer afternoon, and her kitchen smelled heavenly. She had sprigs of oregano, thyme, and mint spread neatly across 2 cooling racks. Instead of bunches hanging in dusty corners, her herbs dried evenly in the open air, ready to be tucked into jars for winter stews and teas. Ruth told me how satisfying it felt to make do with something so ordinary, yet so effective. For older gardeners, this method saves energy and time. There's no need for heavy dehydrators or complicated setups. A lightweight rack can be lifted easily, rinsed clean, and reused year after year. And for those who enjoy crafting, it works just as well for drying flower petals for potpourri or blossoms for homemade teas. But the lesson goes beyond herbs. Drying takes patience. It's a slow, steady process, much like aging gracefully. With time and air, flavors deepen, fragrances intensify, and beauty is preserved. The cooling rack reminds us that life's best qualities are not rushed, but allowed to unfold gently. In gardening, as in living, the simplest tools often bring the richest rewards. Sometimes the simplest items give the most surprising results. A pack of shower caps from Dollar Tree, the kind you might tuck into a travel bag, can become a gardener's secret ally. Slip one over the top of a pot or seed tray, and the elastic edge hugs the rim like it was made for the job. Inside, warmth and moisture are captured, creating a mini greenhouse that coaxes seeds to life faster and more reliably. The soil stays damp without daily fuss, and the transparent cover lets you watch seedlings push their way up, tiny victories visible through a film of plastic. I remember visiting a retired teacher named Helen who gardened entirely on her sun porch. She showed me her trays of lettuce and zinnias, each one capped with a shower cover. This way, she said, I can keep gardening without bending or carrying heavy watering cans every morning. Her seeds sprouted strong, and she harvested salads right from her porch, proof that even with limited mobility, gardening can thrive when tools are light and clever. What makes this hack so special is its flexibility. You can poke a few holes in the plastic for ventilation or remove the cap during the heat of the day, then slip it back on when night brings a chill. Washable and reusable, they stretch across season after season, just waiting to be pressed into service again. There's a gentle reminder here sometimes: protection doesn't need to be complicated. Just as we find comfort in a warm shawl or a roof overhead, seeds too flourish with a simple layer of care. Gardening, like life, is often about using what you have on hand and discovering that with imagination, even the humblest objects can hold the power to nurture. Fertilizing can feel messy or intimidating, measuring liquids, mixing solutions, and worrying about overfeeding. But a silicone ice cube tray from Dollar Tree can turn that chore into something easy and reliable. The trick is simple: mix up a batch of liquid fertilizer or compost tea, pour it into the tray, and freeze. Later, you can pop out a cube, drop it into your watering can, or tuck it into a pot. As it melts, the nutrients release slowly, feeding your plants with just the right amount. No spills, no waste, no guesswork. My neighbor James, who loves his potted roses, started using this method last summer. He told me how it took away the stress of measuring every week. Instead, he kept a freezer bag of plant cubes ready to go. On hot afternoons, he'd drop one into his watering can, stroll across his patio, and let his roses drink deeply. He smiled and said, "It feels like I'm serving them iced tea." His roses bloomed fuller than ever with less effort. For gardeners with limited energy or shaky hands, this hack offers independence. The cubes are lightweight, easy to handle, and consistent every time. And because silicone trays are flexible, they're effortless to clean and reuse, ready for the next batch. The lesson here is clear: when we simplify, we succeed. Gardening doesn't need to be complicated to be effective. Like freezing memories into photographs, these little fertilizer cubes hold energy until the moment it's needed. And when released, they bring strength and life. It's a reminder that preparation, patience, and small acts of foresight can transform everyday routines into something joyful and sustaining. Climbing plants have a way of reaching for the sky, but without support, they tangle and droop. Many gardeners invest in elaborate trellises, yet a simple Dollar Tree cookie cooling rack can do the job beautifully. Place it vertically in a pot or raised bed, securing it with garden stakes, chopsticks, or zip ties. Soon, peas, beans, or even cucumbers will find the evenly spaced grid and begin climbing their tendrils, wrapping like little hands around each bar. I once visited a friend named Carl, whose backyard was no bigger than a single-car driveway. He had lined 3 cooling racks side by side against a wall. Up them climbed snap peas and morning glories, creating a living curtain of green and blossoms. Carl laughed, saying, "Who needs an expensive trellis when a cookie rack does the trick?" What struck me most wasn't just the savings, but the creativity, a willingness to see potential where others see only kitchenware. The beauty of this hack is its versatility. Lay the racks horizontally above a planter to lift squash or melons off damp soil, preventing rot. Combine several to build a larger framework, then take them down at season's end. Rinse and stack flat until next year. Light, reusable, and endlessly adaptable, they prove that support doesn't need to be heavy or costly. And perhaps that's the heart of the lesson. In gardening, as in life, growth often depends on the supports we provide. Sometimes they're as grand as a sturdy fence, and sometimes they're as humble as a cooling rack. What matters most is that we offer enough structure for climbing things to rise. With even the simplest framework, plants and people find their way upward. When space is limited, creativity stretches further than soil. A simple over-the-door shoe organizer from Dollar Tree with its clear plastic pockets can turn a bare wall or balcony railing into a living garden. Fill each pocket with potting mix, tuck in your favorite herbs, strawberries or flowers, and watch the greenery cascade down like a soft curtain. It's an answer for anyone who dreams of a lush garden but doesn't have the ground space to spread out. I once met a woman named Nancy who lived in a small apartment overlooking a busy street. Her balcony, hardly large enough for a chair, seemed impossible for gardening. But she hung 2 shoe organizers along the railing, planting mint, parsley, lettuce, and even bright marigolds. When I visited, it felt like stepping into a secret oasis, green, fragrant, and alive. Nancy said tending her wall garden gave her peace each morning. She no longer mourned the lack of land. She celebrated the beauty she could create in the space she had. This hack is practical in countless ways. The vertical layout keeps plants easy to reach, soil moisture visible at a glance, and pests less likely to find their way in. You can dedicate 1 row to herbs, another to salad greens, and a third to pollinator flowers, creating balance and abundance in the smallest footprint. When a pocket wears out, replacing it costs only $1, yet the joy it brings feels priceless. And here lies the deeper truth: limitation often sparks our greatest creativity. Just as a small apartment can hold a garden, so too can life's narrow places bloom when met with imagination. A wall of pockets reminds us that beauty doesn't require wide open fields. Sometimes it only asks for a bit of light, a touch of soil, and the courage to plant where we stand. As we've walked together through these Dollar Tree garden hacks, one truth keeps rising like morning sun. Beauty doesn't demand riches, only resourcefulness. A baking mat warming seeds, a shaker scattering them evenly. A shoe organizer turning into a vertical garden, all these remind us that creativity blossoms when we work with what we have. It isn't about expensive tools or sprawling land. It's about imagination, patience, and a willingness to see potential in the simplest things. I think of my grandmother often when I share tips like these. She gardened with tin cans, broken baskets, and jars she'd saved for decades. Yet her flowers were always the brightest, her vegetables the most abundant. What mattered wasn't the cost of her tools, but the care in her hands. That same spirit lives in these little hacks. They show us that gardening, like life, is an art of second chances, of turning overlooked objects into vessels of growth. For those of us in our golden years, this lesson feels especially sweet. We may move a little slower, bend a little less, or spend a little more carefully, but our hands still hold the power to create beauty. With thrift and imagination, we continue to shape spaces that nurture us and those we love. Each seedling we protect, each herb we dry, each fruit we guard is a reminder that life's harvest comes not from what we spend, but from how we care. So I leave you with this, dear friend: which of these humble tricks speaks to you? Which one will find its way into your garden? Share your answer, because your story might inspire someone else to try. And if these ideas brought you joy, consider joining this growing community where creativity is celebrated and no effort is too small. Until we meet again, may your garden thrive, may your heart stay light, and may the simplest seeds in your care grow into timeless beauty.